It's time for Losses Above Replacement, the best baseball podcast to grace your ears, with your hosts, Alex.
Gosh, I have so many questions. Also, where's my car?
Splash.
Strive to love something as much as my grandmother loves buying new crock pots.
And MAK.
If you've ever been to Boston, you know that they have amazing ice cream.
Coming to you from coast to coast, it's LAR.
Unfortunately, we are only visiting you from one coast this evening, as a certain Alex of ours is dealing with the Iowa State Cyclones up in his great state of Washington. So it'll just be MAK and I today. MAK, how's it going?
It's going all right. Unlike the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast has been in a drought. So it does seem like we are actually going to get some rain, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm competing this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. My sister's coming home this weekend too. Thanksgiving is next week, so that's that on my end. Syracuse won in football and basketball, although their basketball team is not looking so good actually. But yeah, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, my beloved Boise State Broncos are the number 4 seed in the college football playoff rankings, at least according to the playoff bracket. They're number 12 normal wise, but hopefully they keep it up. I want to see Boise State play in a big bowl game again. And ironically enough, this would be a great result for college football as an entity. And you're thinking, Splash, it's Boise State. Why? Because would you rather a Boise State home game in the first round of the playoff or a game in Columbus? I'm sorry. Yeah. Everyone and their brother would choose the game in Columbus or in Eugene or in Bloomington, Indiana. Bloomington.
Yep. My brother went to school there. I know.
That would be a nice one. With all due respect to my beloved Boise State Broncos, I don't know if you really want to play a game on the blue turf in that sort of environment. I would love it as a fan of the Boise State Broncos, but I would understand if you want to quote unquote relegate Boise State to playing in like the Cotton Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl or some big bowl. So it's like a neutral site game and you are going to get the big crowd anyways for that. Like imagine, I know Michigan stinks this year. Imagine the big house for a college football quarterfinal game. Tuscaloosa, great. Athens, great. Baton Rouge, great. Oxford, great. Knoxville, great. Boise, Provo, great. Dallas for SMU. SMU's really good this year. Ooh, boy,
SMU is nasty this year, yeah.
That'd be popping. Coral Gables for Miami. Ooh. They host the Orange Bowl anyways. That would be that'd be irrelevant. But this is a baseball podcast, not a college football podcast. Shout out to Adley Rutschman, of course. I would like to touch on the awards real quick, but then we're going to hop into some Hall of Fame balloting.
Yep.
And we're going to hop into some free agency predictions, if you will, machinations, pipe dreams. So
yes,
we can go in that. Predictions, machinations, pipe dreams. Today, Wednesday, November 20th, as we're recording, Cy Youngs were announced. Tarek Skubal, unanimous American League Cy Young. Happy birthday, buddy. National League, Chris Sale, believe it or not, has won a Cy Young, 26 out of 30 first place votes. MAK, any surprises here?
Not really. Shout out Sean Manaea, 5th place vote. Also, shout out Cade Smith in the American League. Cade Smith did also get a 5th place vote. I will say the one surprise I have is that both of the Mets writers voted Wheeler first place. I had a feeling that some people were going to vote for Wheeler just because of the volume factor. That's what happened a few years ago when he was second to Burns. But I think Sale was, it was a long time coming for him. Feels like when he was in the American League, I was picking him every year for a while. And then, something would happen. He'd have a bad September. He'd get hurt. And then, finally at the age of 35, he gets his first one. And then Tarek Skubal, maybe Splash, maybe you were a couple years early on that. But he was fantastic this year. And I will say I thought maybe someone would throw a vote to, maybe Emmanuel Clase for first place, but shout out to Seth Lugo coming in second. I'm really, really happy for Seth Lugo. He always wanted to be a starter in New York. It never really quite worked out, but he's gotten his opportunity. He ran with it. Second place in Cy Young. If you told me that, 3 years ago or two years ago even, that Seth Lugo was going to be a starter getting second in Cy Young voting, I would have thought you were insane. But yeah, big ups to him and Skubal. Unanimous. I mean, he deserves it.
I think we all could have predicted Skubal coming into the season. If he wasn't the favorite, he was right up there with the Garrett Coles of the world, especially when Cole went down. And then you look and it's like, okay, Atlanta first place. Okay, obviously Spencer Strider. Philly second place, obviously Zach Wheeler. That happened. Royals second place. Oh, obviously Cole Reagans. No, it's Seth Lugo and Chris Sale. Shout out to Vaughn Grissom as well. Just a phenomenal season for both Sale and Skubal, dueling triple crowns. My one takeaway is one, shout out to Britt Giroli. My bad on the pronunciation. Washington writer, works at The Athletic, voted 5th place vote for Reynaldo Lopez. I would have argued he deserved a lot more. He allowed one more earned run than Paul Skeens and a couple extra innings, and Paul Skeens was third easily, and Reynaldo Lopez gets one castaway vote. I have my own opinions about that regardless. Let's hop over to the Rookie of the Year. Paul Skeens, winner in that one. Jackson Merrill coming up second. Only 4 National Leaguers received votes, with Jackson Churio coming in third and Shota Imanaga coming in fourth. But in the American League, a bit of a shocker, as none of us picked a player who received a first-place vote. I picked Austin Wells, who finished third, but no first-place votes. And both you and Alex picked Mason Miller, who I think did get a first-place vote, but finished outside of the top.
He did, yes. Yeah, I will say, look, Luis Gil was a fine pitcher. I thought he had a good season, but I saw, people throwing out comparisons to this is like when Ben Simmons won Rookie of the Year in the NBA because, Gil debuted in 2021. He literally faced Kyle Seager when he was still in the majors. And he led the majors in walks this year in a year he didn't qualify for the ERA title. But on the surface, he did have a pretty solid year. I really think Willie Abreu got disrespected. Gold Glove outfielder who was close to 20% better than league average offensively. I think, Colton Cowser, you could make the case there that he deserved it too. Really, I thought Cade Smith at least deserved more consideration. I mean, Miller lit the world on fire. And please, the A's went through so much this year. I thought, maybe the writers would show more love to the fireballing Miller. Plus, they've had relievers win Rookie of the Year before. I mean, they had Houston Street, they had Andrew Bailey. So I think that Heel was good this year. I would not have voted for him. I did not have him in my top 3, but I see some reasoning why the writers gave it to him.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird to me, of course, in my Braves lens, when Spencer Strider did not win it over Michael Harris. And then this year you have Heel win it over other position players. And it's weird to me to see the ebb and flow back and forth of Rookie of the Year. Sometimes it goes to pitchers. You mentioned the A's relievers. And then other times it's just the best position player. So funny how that works sometimes. The MVP will be announced Friday, the day after this podcast airs. Do you think, here's my over-under 2.5 players receive a first place vote for MVP? Both leagues combined. Last year was unanimous in both leagues with Ohtani and Acuna. Will it be unanimous again with Judge and Ohtani?
I'm going to take the under here. I actually think they're both going to be unanimous because while both, I'm going to assume that Witt and Lindor are going to be the runners up. They are both great players. They both had great seasons, but I think the difference is so clear to all the writers that they're all going to vote for those two to win. I think this could be a case like last year where, Acuna got all 30 first place votes, Betts got all 30 second place votes. I could actually see that happening because really I have a hard time thinking how I understand Soto had a great year, but I have a hard time thinking in my head how you could vote him over Witt. Witt literally had basically a 10.5 win season, and is going to come in second place. And Lindor, like, I think Ketel Marte has a case. I think almost everyone's going to put Lindor second.
Yeah, it was tough. Marte missing time later in the season. He was my pick over Lindor, and then he misses the time. It's like, and Lindor's balling out,
that's the
to
issue.
ascend, and Marte, flatlines, doesn't play at all. So that was a tough one. I agree with you. I think it'll be fully unanimous at the top. I do think Marte and Soto could steal a second place vote here or there. It was an outlier that Betts had all 30 second place votes last year. That was the first time
never happened before.
First time that ever happened. So I would take the over on 2.5 guys to get a second place vote. I would take the under on guys to get 2.5 guys to get a first place vote. But that said, we have a Hall of Fame ballot to check out, and I'm going to read through the names of the first timers. Of course, there are some players who would have been first timers but did not make the official ballot. So here are the newcomers: Carlos Gonzalez, Curtis Granderson, Felix Hernandez, Adam Jones, Ian Kinsler, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Dustin Pedroia, Hanley Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, Troy Tulowitzki, and Ben Zobrist. And the list of returnees: Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Mark Burley, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Andy Pettit, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Francisco Rodriguez, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, and David Wright. Mac, I will start with you. Who is one newcomer you must see in Cooperstown next year?
I think this is a slam dunk here. I will go with an easy one. If you don't vote for Ichiro, you have a problem with me. Ichiro is one of my favorite players of all time. Basically, you can ask anyone in my family, they'd probably say the same thing. Ohtani obviously captures all of Japan's attention right now, but before that, it was Ichiro, and he's still doing advertisements over there. He's literally the all-time hit king, if you include his numbers in Japan. I remember there's that infamous Mike Francesa clip where he's in denial that Ichiro is a Hall of Famer, and then he finds out he has 3,000 hits, and he's like, "Oh yeah, nope." Then he's a slam dunk. He's a shoo-in, But yeah, 3,000 hits. Hit over 300 for his career. I understand his 757 OPS doesn't jump off the page necessarily, but that dude just, if he wanted to hit for power, he could hit for power. His slugging percentage went up exponentially with men on base and with the bases loaded. He hit that iconic home run off of Mariano Rivera late in the 2009 season, which Alex was at. I'm sure he's mentioned that before. But yeah, top to bottom, this is a great player. He could hit for power, but he was a great contact hitter, very fast runner too. And he has one of the best throwing arms I have ever seen. As Dave Newhouse once said, he threw something out of Star Wars. So Ichiro, if you don't vote for Ichiro to get into Cooperstown, I'm not sure what to tell you.
I agree. And I'm actually going to go with his Yankees teammate, CC Sabathia here. I agree 100% with Ichiro. Ichiro should be one of the guys that's flirting with 100% to me. Just the quintessential Hall of Famer. Just great with the bat. Tremendous contact hitter, unbelievable defensive player, 10 gold gloves, 10 200 hit seasons, 3,000 career hits, 500 steals, MVP, Rookie of the Year, 10-time All-Star. To me, he's clearly, I understand WAR says he only has 60 wins above replacement. Fine.
Only, by the way.
Only. He started his career at 27, by the way. But I'm going to go to his teammate, CC Sabathia. World Series champion with the New York Yankees, had the heroic run with the 2008 Brewers that captured the heart of 7-year-old me, hoping and praying they would go to the World Series. They did not, by the way. It was the Phillies.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Milwaukee. But CC Sabathia, 3,000 strikeouts as a lefty. That doesn't grow on trees. And I understand the ERA is a little higher. Reminder, he played in Cleveland and New York at the tail end of the steroid era, and people don't talk about it. That inflates ERAs. It does. It just inflates ERAs. If you take out the first couple of years of his career, his ERA is much more in line with Hall of Famers. And at a certain point, you need starters in the Hall of Fame. CC Sabathia, to me, is a Hall of Famer. Should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There are other newcomers that I would vote for on a less stacked ballot, But CC Sabathia is a guy I'm prioritizing or would prioritize this year. I want to see him in Cooperstown in July next year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I would vote for Sabathia also. And yes, he has a 3.7 career ERA. It was a 3 through 2012. He had a 3.5. And he dealt with the injuries. He dealt with the knee problem. It literally that basically ended his career. But he went out there. He still took the ball every fifth day in 2015 and 2016, and he still, he had his moments for the 2017 and 18 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Literally pitched until his body couldn't take it anymore. That 2008 Brewers run. I mean, I understand that they did pass up the Mets to get that final wild card spot, but that was insane. Pitching every 3 days, just dominating everyone. I mean, it was. I can't think of. I mean, there's just nothing quite like that run. I mean, that's the thing is that he was solid that year with Cleveland. 3.80 ERA. He was 11-2 with a 1.6 ERA. He threw 7 complete games in 17
He led both leagues in shutouts.
Yeah, exactly. You know how often that happens? It just doesn't happen. There's a reason he got that contract with the Yankees. Then by the end of it, people are like, oh my God, it was such an overpay. I mean, he got his ring. He got his ring his first year. He was awesome. I really enjoyed watching CC pitch throughout his career. And I mean, he still has like a strong presence in New York too, within the community. So yeah, I would definitely vote for CC to be in the Hall of Fame.
All right. Any other newcomers you're pounding the table for this year? I have a couple that I don't know if if in 3, 5 years, 10 years down the line, if they are going to be Hall of Famers, but I would vote for them right now, if on a clean ballot, of course.
So here's the tough part is that there are a couple of guys that I really want to vote for that I know will probably not get it. The first of which is Dustin Pedroia. I mean, if Dustin Pedroia doesn't get hurt, we probably aren't even having this conversation. He's a slam dunk. But unfortunately, barely played the last couple of years of his career, out of the league at 35. It really hurts because he was such an awesome player for the Red Sox. He really reminds me of David Wright, another guy who probably would make it into the Hall of Fame, but injuries got the best of him. So that's one guy. The other guy I'm going with, who technically he was briefly teammates with, Ian Kinsler. Kinsler, I thought, is super underrated second baseman. I think, he's playing at the same time as Pedroia and Cano and Utley. So it's kind of hard for him to get as many votes, but one hit shy of 2,000. I wish he would just come out of retirement, get that one hit. So instead of 1999, it's 2000. 257 homers and 243 steals. So he's almost a 250 guy. 777 OPS. He was 54 wins above replacement on Baseball Reference. Like, I just think he's super underrated. So I'm not saying that Kinsler should get in, but he at least should warrant some consideration. I think a lot of people are just going to overlook him like, whatever, like Ian Kinsler, blah, blah, blah. But I think he's going to end up one of those guys that, Not Guy Eddie talks about, not enough people talk about X. Well, I think Kinsler is going to be one of those guys eventually because he's much better than people give him credit for.
He had some great years with Texas, some great years with Detroit. And was on if memory serves, the 2018 Red Sox did win
He got a ring there, yes.
I agree with you on Pedroia. Pedroia and Kinsler are – sometimes you have these eras of baseball. You have like this 10 to 15-year stretch that you're just the second banana. And then in this case, the first banana, Robinson Cano, as the PED stuff. So you might have an entire generation that doesn't have a Hall of Fame second baseman. And it's a bit of a crime, and of course Cano cheated, so fair enough. And I'm going to extend that actually to the middle infield that we have Jimmy Rollins we'll talk about on the returning ballot. But Troy Tulowitzki is a clear, to me, Hall of Fame level player who just didn't play long enough.
Oh my God, yeah, I wish.
Didn't have a long enough prime, didn't have a long enough career. Blue Jays legend, Yankees legend. And it just is unfortunate. And a lot of the newcomers, to me, if you add 2 average years, if you add 2.5 win seasons to their careers, I think they're Hall of Famers. Felix Hernandez, to me, is a Hall of Fame pitcher. In the modern era, in this modern context, I think he deserves to be his prime. To me, Streams Hall of Fame. Just I don't know if he pitched long enough. Ian Kinsler, if you throw a couple nice, like 2.5 win seasons. Russell Martin, same thing. Brian McCann. If you take Yadier Molina out and you give Martin and McCann a couple Gold Gloves, I think that can change some opinions. Pedroia, same thing. Hanley Ramirez. Marlins Ramirez was unbelievably good.
He won a batting title.
He was 50 steals in a season. CC, Hall of Famer to me, Ichiro Hall of Famer to me, and Troy Tulowitzki is the quintessential, is the Nomar Garciaparra of our generation.
Oh, yeah.
Just unbelievable. The peak, best shortstop in baseball, full stop. As toolsy as they come, 5-tool player at the shortstop position, an absolute hose of an arm, tremendous defensive player, good base runner, great hitter, great power hitter at shortstop. He just didn't play long enough. And then you have Ben Zobrist, who is kind of the opposite, that it's just kind of checks the boxes, but it's like Troy Tulowitzki is just Sharpie checks. He walks on the baseball field. It's like, that guy's the best player in the state. No matter what state it, he's there. And then Ben Zobrist, you're like, huh. And then you watch him play, it's like, oh, this guy can ball out. This guy is a critical piece on multiple World Series winning
almost
teams.
a nine-win season one year.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an 8.6 one year and a 7.6 another year.
And if you
it's crazy.
And I think one thing Ward doesn't fully encapsulate sometimes is how difficult it is to play multiple positions well. Yes. And that's what Zobrist did. So he would get credit for playing like his cumulative defense, right? So say he's +5 DRS. Well, that +5 DRS, consider half of his time he's at one position, then a quarter of the time he's at another position, then he's at another position, another position, another position. He's like bouncing between positions. And think about Troy Tulowitzki just played shortstop, right? Or Curtis Granderson just played center field, or Ian Kinsler just played second base. Russell Martin just played catcher, right? So they had the same job every day when they got to the stadium. Ben Zobrist, he's going to get a call or a text message from Joe Madden. Hey, you're going to play third base today. Hey, you're going to play right field today. Hey, you're going to catch today. I don't think he actually caught, but you know what I mean? No. He's just, he has to fill in the gaps, and he made every team he played on better because he was able to, your third baseman pulled a hamstring last night. He can play third. Oh, your shortstop, is 0 for 25 against the starting pitcher. He can play shortstop. Not great, but he can play shortstop. Oh, your left fielder is on paternity leave. Great. Zobrist can play left field. And he just had that sixth tool, if you will. Tulowitzki, 5-tool player. Zobrist had the sixth tool, that super utility spot. So if we have the Tony Phillips Award, Ben Zobrist is the modern example.
Yeah, I wish that the utility Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers existed when Zobrist was playing, because he would have. I mean, the one year, 2009, like I said, that was the year he had 8.6 WAR, led the American League. He had 27 homers with a 948 OPS. He was a 3-time All-Star. I mean, he got on base. That's he was the money ball player, I think. And really, he was a overall best at second base, but he was just a great all-around player, I thought. And I do think, first of all, I want to touch on Granderson for a second. I'm a huge Curtis Granderson fan, on and off the field. He's a great guy. And I really enjoyed watching him on the Mets. And he had his great years with the Yankees. But Troy Tulowitzki was a guy I was literally begging the Mets to get at one point. I mean, it felt like for a couple of years in a row, the Mets were rumored like they need a shortstop. They're going to, Tulowitzki's the guy they're targeting. And I remember I was asleep when he got traded. I had no clue what had happened until I woke up the next morning. I checked my phone, and it's like Troy Tulowitzki got traded to the Blue Jays. I was just confused. According to some, people thought the Mets had gotten him, but nope, he got sent to Toronto.
He was traded for former Met Jose Reyes in that deal, yes?
Yes, he was. It was Jose Reyes, Jeff Hoffman, and I believe future Met Miguel Castro was in that deal. Yep, it was he got traded with former Met LaTroy Hawkins for Miguel Castro, Jeff Hoffman, who was, I believe, the centerpiece in that deal, Jose Reyes, Jesus Tinoco. So, yeah, man, if Tula had just stayed healthy, like you were saying, excellent defensive shortstop, great hitter. I mean, really. And then just to tie a bow on this, I mean, Brian McCann and Russell Martin, Fangraphs says they're Hall of Famers pretty much. or they're borderline Hall of Famers. Baseball Reference, not so much. But Brian McCann is a 7-time All-Star and a 6-time Silver Slugger. He never hit more than 30, but he never hit fewer than 18 in a full season, and he never struck out 100 times. So Brian McCann may not make the Hall of Fame, but it's worth noting. For a catcher, really impressive.
Yeah, I have my Brian McCann take. If he played in any city besides Atlanta, just 81 games a year, if the Atlanta Braves were the Albuquerque Braves.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. But catching 81 games a year, obviously didn't catch every single game, but catching that many games before the DH rule, universal DH, National Leaguer, and he's not playing first. You have a rolling door of guys playing first that could hit a little bit. Mark Teixeira, remember him as a Brave?
Oh, yeah. Remember him as an Angel?
Yeah. Oh, God. So he's like, to me, Brian McCann's a Hall of Famer. To me, he's a guy that if one thing goes differently, he's a more universally regarded Hall of Famer. That one thing is playing his home games in 100-degree weather for months and months in the crazy humid summers. So just a great player. World Series champion, if you want to count the 2017 Astros. Really good as a Yankee, too. And like you said, 7 All-Stars, 6 Silver Sluggers. And if not for Yadier Molina, potentially the greatest defensive catcher of all time, he'd probably have a couple Gold Gloves or a couple Platinum Gloves. And this is when I wish there were like tiers to these things. Like if voting was released and you could say, oh, he was a Gold Glove finalist, a bunch of times. Like we are going to miss guys that slipped through the cracks of like, who is the second best shortstop defensively behind Ozzie Smith? We don't have an award to say that. We know the best. No. We know it's Ozzie Smith, or we know the best defensive pitcher is Greg Maddux or Brooks Robinson at third, what have you. But we don't know who's second. We don't know who was in consideration every year unless you're like, we don't have finalists for those. Now we have finalists. Now we can say, oh, Juan Soto, Gold Glove finalist.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, not ideal, but
yeah.
It's just one of those things that it's going to miss from his Baseball Reference page. But he was a tremendous defensive player and unbelievably consistent for a team that had a lot of competitive seasons. He did just catch the tail end of the 14 straight division championships, but just a stalwart behind the dish.
So Yadier Molina won the Gold Glove every year from 2008 to 2015. The player that preceded him at catcher in the Gold Glove category was Russell Martin. So worth pointing out, if anyone's considering Russell Martin for the Hall of Fame, before Yadier Molina won Gold Glove, Russell Martin did. He also won a Silver Slugger that year.
Mm-hmm. Now, Russell Martin, I'm down. I would prioritize McCann slightly over Martin.
I think I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. They're 1A, 1B in that. It's tough to have one but not the other. But I made room for McCann on my bracket this year, my ballot this year, in a different year. Like I wish Wagner was already in, Jones was already in, Beltran was already in. I wish we got these guys like cycled through already, because then I would vote for the Martins and the Felixes and other players more down the list. But let's hop over to the returning players. We have 14 on the ballot. I voted for 7. I don't know how many you voted for, how many you would vote for, but I think it's time. Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame. Just listen, the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. Willie Mays said it, and if he's not, he's number 2 behind Willie Mays. So being in the same category of Willie Mays at something is great. And we have players at other positions, Brooks Robinson, Ozzie Smith, who did not hit 434 home runs, did not have a 51 homer season, did not get robbed of the 2005 NL MVP, that they're in the Hall of Fame just on their defense. Andrew Jones played a premier defensive position, played it at an elite level for 10 seasons, and then was a actually reasonable corner outfielder. People forget it. People just only look at the 2008 Dodgers years like, that was bad. Absolutely, I agree it was bad. Horrible, horrendous, whatever word you want to throw, whatever H word you want to throw on it. But then 2009 to 2012, he was an average MLB player. So he taxed on a couple extra years of production. But just a phenomenal defensive center fielder. I think he could hit. He could actually hit. He could actually hit 430 home runs. I understand the batting average was low. He struck out a lot. He didn't walk a ton, but he ended as an above average hitter and the greatest defensive center fielder to ever live.
He also had a couple of solid years for the Rakuten Golden Eagles. after his major league career. He hit 26 home runs with 845 OPS in 2013 and 24 home runs with an 820 OPS in 2014. So there's that. So if you add in his Japanese baseball totals, he hit over 500 professional home runs. But anyway,
sounds good to me.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I think Jones is. I think he's one of the best I've ever watched in center field. He had a ton of range, a lot of power. Hit 51 home runs in a season. Hit 41 the next year. If you take 1998 to 2006, you think he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer. Unfortunately, that 2008 season, I saw him play shortly before he got released. That was a disaster. But yeah, he recovered decently enough with Texas and Chicago and New York, where his numbers. He still finished 434 home runs, 823 OPS. But the guy I want to focus on, you mentioned him earlier, Billy Wagner needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He got so close, just a few votes shy. But, I mean, what more can you ask? 422 saves in 16 seasons, a 2.3 ERA, 1,196 strikeouts in only 903 innings. That's a crazy good mark. The postseason numbers are ugly. I understand that. And a lot of people do weigh that when it comes to pitchers especially. But, I mean, the dude for his career struck out basically a third of the batters he faced. I see no reason to keep him out anymore. I understand maybe you just don't like that relievers get in, but I mean, his numbers are on par with Mariano Rivera in a lot of ways. He doesn't have the postseason resume that Rivera does, but I think Wagner at this point, I mean, Bruce Suter's in the Hall of Fame, and his numbers don't quite compare. Dennis Eckersley is also in the Hall of Fame. I understand Eckersley has an MVP, a Cy Young, a ring. He's in there deservingly, but I'm just saying there are some guys in the Hall of Fame where I feel like Wagner is better than, and feels like they when people debate Hall of Fame relievers, I don't hear their cases debated as much, whereas Wagner, this is his 10th year on the ballot. So I really hope Wagner gets in. He was one of my favorite players growing up. So I think Wagner should be prioritized.
Absolutely. So my returning group, I have 7 players that I would vote for. I have Bobby Abreu, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Chase Utley, and Billy Wagner. In a larger ballot, in a less crowded ballot, I could consider a vote for Mark Burley, Andy Pettit, Francisco Rodriguez. Jimmy Rollins is a really close one to me. This is a bit of the second base argument I just had, that it's weird that a generation like Jimmy Rollins is probably the best full career shortstop besides Derek Jeter, like 2000 to 2015. And it'd be weird to only have one Hall of Famer, and that being Jeter. And then Lindor takes the baton after Jeter. And Rollins is tough, but I would choose Utley over Rollins. So, and I don't know how many 2008 Phillies you want to have in the Hall of Fame. So
Rollins is a tough one. I mean, he's definitely a Phillies Hall of Famer. I believe he's their all-time leader in hits.
Yes. Yeah, that was when Todd Helton got into the Hall of Fame. There were Jimmy Rollins fans like, Jimmy Rollins has the most hits in Phillies history. That should count more than the Rockies having the most hits in Rockies history.
He is a 95 OPS plus for his career. He won an MVP. I don't think he should have won that MVP, but I'm not saying he wasn't a great player. He was a very good player. And he was actually a pretty solid defensive shortstop. But if I'm looking at the returners, I'd vote for Carlos Beltran, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner. So that's those first 6 names on the ballot right there. Because so I would give Chase Utley a vote too, and then Bobby Abreu. Here's the thing is that I could be a homer here and put David Wright on there, and I really do want to put David Wright on there just to keep him on the ballot. Realistically, David Wright is not a Hall of Famer. So, if I were being more of a fan here, I would put Wright on over Utley, but I think I have 8 guys on the returning ballot I would vote for, and then I think the only new additions this year I would add are probably Sabathia and Ichiro. So it's a good class this year. I think we had 3 guys get in this past year. Maurer and Beltre on their first ballot. And I expect that Ichiro and Sabathia will be first ballot guys too.
I think Sabathia might have to sweat it out. Ichiro should sail in way over 90%.
I don't know.
I've heard
it depends.
A lot of mixed bags with Sabathia.
I actually haven't. It's weird.
Yeah.
I think it depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm for both, and I would throw a vote towards Brian McCann. I don't think he's going to hit the 5% this year, and that's just how the ballot crumbles sometimes. That you have these really competitive ballots that, like the NFL one this year is brutal.
It's crazy. Yeah,
they only get a maximum of 8 players, so you might have like Antonio Gates, Steve Smith, Torrey Holt, Eli Manning, 2 Super Bowl rings.
I want Eli to get in. Yep.
Yeah, it's like there's like everyone on the list feels like a Hall of Famer, and then the baseball one's like, I mean, you can poke holes in even the returning guys. Like Carlos Beltran was a part of the 2017 Astros. Andrew Jones fell off the cliff at 30. Manny Ramirez cheated. Alex Rodriguez cheated. Billy Wagner sucked in the playoff. It's like everyone has like this like thing against him, and then the NFL, it's like Torrey Holt's not in the Hall of Fame. He had the most yards through 10 seasons like ever. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, here's my thing is that in baseball, I think Jack Morris had a pretty good career, but Jack Morris had a 3.9 ERA and a 1.05 ERA plus and only 43 wins above replacement.
Mm-hmm.
If Jack Morris is in the Hall of Fame, then I see no reason to keep CC Sabathia out. That being said, like, Andy Pettitte is a guy. It feels like every Yankee fan you talk to will tell you Andy Pettitte's a Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Respectfully, Andy Pettitte, he took steroids. I'm not saying, look, and I have the steroid guys. Like, I have Manny Ramirez. I have A-Rod on my ballot. I would have voted for Gary Sheffield. I would have voted for Sammy Sosa probably.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bonds
and heck,
and
I would have
Clemens.
voted for Bonds and Clemens too. But Andy Pettitte with the steroids still had an ERA of 3.8, and his ERA plus was 1.17. And compare that, like Mike Mussina pitched clean through that era, still had a 1.23 ERA plus. And I think that Pettitte, for as good as a player as he is, people talk about him like he was Greg Maddux or something. He was not Greg Maddux. So I think Sabathia, while the newer age. The newer generation of fans may not appreciate how great he was in his career. I think that, if you go by the old school standards and combine it with some of the new school standards, I think he has both. I think he should get in.
Yeah, 3,000 strikeouts as a left-handed pitcher.
250 wins if you like that
happen.
too.
Yeah, like in the modern era, if you're like, oh, well, it's not 300, it's 250. He won a World Series. He struck out 3,000 batters. Like,
there's only one active player with more wins than him right now, Justin Verlander. Like, it's
and Verlander, easy Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Verlander is going to be a slam dunk.
And CC did win a Cy Young, 2007.
Yes, he did.
He won a World Series. He had the great little spurt with Milwaukee that if you're
he got MVP votes.
Yeah. Do you think his Brewers tenure, besides like Brewers NL, will be mentioned on the Hall of Fame plaque?
Oh yeah, of course. Okay. I mean, that was bananas.
That is some not quite old Haas Radborn stuff because he was pitching like every day. But basically, imagine pitchers' arms would fall off. Imagine if you told, like, you go to Kansas City, and you're like, okay, Cole Reagans, we are in a pennant race. Reagans, Lugo, Waka, we're in a pennant race. You have to pitch 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 the rest of the month.
Yeah.
They would like cry with all due respect.
Yeah, that just does not happen.
No. Like Corbin Burns pitched into the 9th inning for the first time in his career this season. He did that 7 times in a month, or basically 7 times in a month. He was there for like 2 months in a week.
It's just crazy what he did. I mean, 7 complete games and 17 starts, 3 shutouts. Basically, every time he took the mound, you knew you were going to get something great out of him. And he hit a couple of home runs, I'm pretty sure. He was a pretty good hitter.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Jake Arrieta half, or in my world, the Chris Medlin half, but more starts, even more awesome. So, shout out to Jake Arrieta. All right, we're going to play a little game in free agency. First, I want you to give you just your best prediction, your one you're most confident in. If you had to bet on it, this is the one you're taking to the bank.
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
I think a guy re-signing. It can be a guy going to a new team. It can be Roki Sasaki to the Dodgers.
So I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna the one that I call me a homer here, but I gotta go with Soto to the Mets at this point. I think it's either the Yankees or the Mets he's gonna sign with, but Steve Cohen really wants him. He knows the fans want him too. And I think that he already he works out he's worked out with Francisco Alvarez in the offseason before. I mean, he knows the team from all of his years in with the Nationals. I just feel like this is a match right here. So that's what I'm most confident in.
All right, that's fair. I unfortunately don't want that to happen. Please.
Obviously, yep.
Yeah, I obviously don't. All right, my prediction, most likely move. I was going to say Max Fried to the Padres because that just feels like he's going to go to Southern California. I'm going to have to go Soto to the Yankees. I think the Yankees saw Soto with their eyes. They traded for him. They saw him with their own eyes. He hit the biggest home run of their season. And I understand the Mets are going to offer him several Brinks trucks full of money. But I think you're the New York Yankees. And you also have a comically large amount of money. You're the Yankees. It's sort of like the Dodgers last year. It's like, they paid Ohtani the $700 million deal and still had room to, give Teoscar Hernandez a $20+ million deal.
And Yamamoto.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just makes so much sense for the Yankees to retain Soto's services. And everything you said about the Mets is true. And it applies to the Yankees as well. And he played a year with the Yankees. He got to be teammates with Aaron Judge. He got to be teammates with Garrett Cole. And the young crop of guys, the American League Rookie of the Year for what that's worth, and Luis Heel and Austin Wells is in that conversation. I don't think Glaber re-signs, unfortunately. You bring in Jazz.
Think so, yep.
And if you're Soto and you're looking at the team and you're like, okay, they made moves to go get better. Not only did they add me, they added literally Juan Soto in the flesh, skin and bones. They go out and add Jazz Chisholm, and Jazz played a role down the stretch. And they haven't been afraid to spend money. They go get Carlos Rodon. They got Garrett Cole in the first place. Of course, they re-signed Judge to the massive extension. And I think this is a case of sometimes the big boys have to put their big boy pants on, and the Yankees are the biggest of the boys. And it is the time to pony up and pay for Ted Williams, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I'll say this is that I still think the Yankees have a shot, like a pretty good shot to get him. I think if they had won the World Series, it would have been a slam dunk. He would have re-signed because they lost. It's like maybe he leaves. Maybe he just moves across town. That's the other thing is that he could just stay in New York and sign with the other team. But yeah,
fair.
That's
all right. I got this one. Is your MLB The Show move? You are the GM of a team, and you sign a player. It might not make any sense, but this is one that you think would fit for a particular team. Give me your player and your team combination.
Man. I hate to repeat the guy, Soto. The Detroit Tigers, man. I know this sounds crazy, but there have been rumblings, what about the Red Sox? What about the Blue Jays? If you want to go to a team that has more upside than both of those teams, I think, it needs offense. The Detroit Tigers would do crazy things if they signed Juan Soto. This is the time to spend for them. That's the thing. They just made the playoffs. They have a Triple Crown winner on their pitching staff who you have to try to, you have to show that you care and that you're willing to spend and that he'll want to stay with you once his contract is up. I think if I'm the Tigers, Soto, it sounds ridiculous, and it almost certainly will not happen. But if he were to sign with a younger club that maybe isn't a serious contender this second, he signs with Detroit. That's a more serious contender.
I really like that one. That one's way out there. I love it. My move, my MLB The Show move, I am in David Rubenstein's ear in Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
And I am signing a big old contract. I know they just moved the fences in left field, so my point isn't as strong as it was last week. I am signing Max Fried to be a member of the Baltimore Orioles. And you get a lefties. So when you face other lefties, you own them. When you face righties, you have the big wall, Mount Baltimore. It makes perfect sense. I don't know if you retain Burns in this scenario. Probably not. But
probably not.
Yeah, but we'll proceed. You get an ace. You get a guy who has pitched in big games to varying levels of success, I will admit, but has pitched in big games. And you get a guy who comes in and can command a room and can say, I have a World Series ring and you do not. Follow me and we will win the World Series, And I think sometimes that gravitas that matters, right? That can be a big, it's like why Juan Soto to the Yankees made a lot of sense to me, that you bring in a champion, you bring in a guy who's been there, done that. And guess what? He been there, did that, helped them get to the World Series. Now they kind of pooped their pants in the World Series, but that's a story for another time. You go out and get winners, and a lot of the time it'll rub off. And last but not least, the pipe dream. I want you to create the most wild scenario. I have mine if you would like me to go first. I've been pounding this drum for about 6 months. 10 years ago, a team made a signing and they got a couple Cy Youngs out of it. This year, the same team should sign a player who formerly won a Cy Young. That is, the Washington Nationals should sign Corbin Burns. I've been pounding this drum for like 5 years now, or for 5 months now. 10 years ago, they signed Max Scherzer. And you had this core of Harper and Turner and Rendon and Steven Strasburg. And you just added an ace right on top. Just boop. This year, you have a core. You have James Wood. You have C.J. Abrams, gambling addict C.J. Abrams. You have Dylan Cruz. You have Brady House coming up. Then your pitching staff. You have Mackenzie Gore. You have Sean Doolittle. Did unbelievable things. Sean Doolittle for president. And you just boop, plop Corbin Burns right on top. Just do it. Please, please, please. Also, Juan Soto returning home would be great, but just boop, drop Corbin Burns right on top of that team. This could also apply to Fried and Snell, but just boop. All right, Mac, what's your pipe dream scenario?
Pipe dream, I'm trying to steer away from the Mets here because obviously I have 1,000 pipe dream scenarios for the Mets.
Roki Sasaki, Juan Soto.
Yeah, exactly.
Alonso.
I could go on for days. Unfortunately, I don't
back?
think
I
do want Alonso back, but for the right price. And unfortunately, I don't see Sasaki really coming to the Mets because they've already committed $5 million to Elian Pena, and they only have $6.2 million available for international signings. But I'm going with the team, going with the Boston Red Sox. They need pitching. Blake Snell. Blake Snell's the guy here.
Okay.
Snell was like the best pitcher in the majors after he came off the IL. He had a 1.23 ERA. He held his opponents to an OPS below 400. I understand he was a risk coming into this year, especially coming off, not having a spring training, Cy Young, but also a lot of walks. And, there were a number of concerns here. I think he showed in the second half that if he has a normal spring training, he will be the ace that everyone wants him to be. The Red Sox need pitching in any way, shape, or form. Probably going to lose Nick Pivetta since he declined his qualifying offer. They lack an ace on that team. I think Tanner Houck is good. I don't expect him to replicate what he did this coming year. Cutter Crawford is fine. He gives up so many home runs. They need more than just Blake Snell, obviously, but that would be a great starting point for them. If they could just get an ace. It feels like they haven't had an ace in ages. And look, I think Nathan Eovaldi was good, but he wasn't as good as Chris Sale was, or John Lester, or Clay Buchholz even. So Sox get Snell. I'd take them a little more seriously.
I do wonder if that would be maybe they'd be a great spot for Freed, because I do wonder if Snell walks a lot of guys, but if you're in Petco and you're at Oracle and you're at the Trop, your walks aren't as likely to be turned into damage as they are at Fenway. So that's one. If I'm Snell, maybe I don't want to go to a hitter-friendly ballpark. Like, imagine Snell in Colorado. Just all the walks and then bad BABIP. It's like, oh God. I don't know. I like it. I like the vision. I do think Boston's in the same situation as Washington in a lot of ways, that just drop an ace on top or drop a star hitter. And I think every team could use Christian Walker. Like, just every team besides like the Dodgers, like the Yankees. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Every team in the league could use a great glove at first, bring some power. Who wouldn't love a 30 homer, 100 RBI Gold Glove first baseman?
Yeah, if the Mets were to let Alonso walk, Walker's one of the guys that I'd want as a contingency plan. There aren't a lot of other good first basemen on the market. I think Josh Bell was a free agent. Like, Bell is fine. He's a switch hitter. He has some pop, but Walker, I think, outside of Alonso, is the best first baseman available. I mean, unless you really think you can swing a trade for Vlad Guerrero Jr., which wow. I'm not saying that there's a 0%. I'm not saying it's impossible because he's on an expiring deal, but it will cost a lot, especially coming off of the season he just had. He had his best season in a few years. You should probably target Walker. I think he and the Yankees are a match made in heaven, especially with them losing Rizzo. And I mean, Rizzo really underperformed this year and last year. He really just hasn't been the same since the concussion. So I think, Walker to the Yankees would make a ton of sense. I could see Alonso going to Washington. A lot of people have Alonso going to Washington. I think the Nats are just in a tough position where they're on the come up for sure. They have the young talent with Wood and Cruz, and you got Gore, Mitchell Parker is solid, DJ Hers. It's like a solid group of players. Plus, they have Patrick Corbin's contract coming off the books, but they're in the NL East, where the Phillies are still really good, the Braves are really good, and the Mets are really good. The Mets just made the NLCS. All three of those teams made the playoffs. So it's like, if you're the Nationals, like, what do? Do you go for it, try to leapfrog one of those guys and hope you get in the playoffs? Or do you go for it and hope that 4 teams in the NL East make the playoffs? It's just an impossible situation. Every team except for the Marlins, I think, can be some form of a contender in 2025.
Absolutely. All right. Because there's only 2 of us, I have a different trivia. It's not perfect. Trivia. It is a bit of a guess. It's instead of backwards looking like trivia, we're going to do forwards looking. Mac, I would like you to give me your prediction, the most random player who receives an MVP vote this season. There's going to be about 45 to 50 of them, about 20 per league, 25 per league.
I was going to say, there's going to be something ridiculous, and I have to let me take a look at things one second. I was not prepared for that. I want
your Kevin Pillar. I want your Ryan Tepera.
You're Ryan Tepera, I wouldn't believe it. I'm going to my relievers right now.
All right. I am going to.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do. Right. I don't know if you are ready for this one. This is way out of the presses.
All right.
I have to think of the player first.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this is the worst podcast section of my existence here. I'm going to go. I want to go with the National Leaguer, but I'm like stuck between a couple names, and I think like Hunter Green, I think is like a really good pitcher and received some Cy Young votes. So I don't know how crazy that would be. I'm going to say hitting coach extraordinaire JD Martinez gets a stray 10th place vote.
I'm trying to follow you here, but he had the longest offer of his career in September. And in general, yeah, so here's the thing. I love the hitting coach thinking there because he helped a lot in that way.
Okay.
I don't see him getting an MVP vote just because his numbers, my God, they were I do feel bad for him. He got unlucky, but that was man.
Okay, fair enough.
I like your thinking.
Fair enough.
I'm going to go with a relief pitcher here
Shocker.
because it feels like those are always the guys who end up getting some. I think I'm going to go with a guy who's a first-time All-Star this year. I'm going to go with Tanner Scott. And if you go on Baseball Reference, if you wouldn't believe it, Tanner Scott had 4 wins above replacement. He's a great left-handed reliever for both the Marlins and the Padres. 1.70 ERA, 84 strikeouts in 72 innings, and I think that cumulatively, 1.70 ERA, 1.1 with the Marlins, 2.7 with the Padres. The Padres got what they needed out of him, and he was great on the Marlins. So I think Tanner Scott maybe snags 10th place vote.
Okay, my American League pick, Gold Glover. I hope he was a Gold Glover this year. I'm going to fact check this before I make a fool of myself.
Sweet.
Which I already did, but that's okay. Yes. First time. Oh, I guess he wasn't as good as I thought he was. Did he even? Am I picking guys that were good through the middle of September and then I dozed off? Okay, maybe that's not the right choice. Do you have an American League pick by chance?
I'm trying to get that together right now.
I'm going to say Kyle Tucker gets an MVP vote. I know he had an awesome season, but he only played 75 games.
Yeah, he didn't play a lot.
So I'm going to say he gets a 10th place vote. Someone throws him on the ballot. That's not exactly a wild player, but a wild situation, I'd say.
Yeah. I'm going to go.
Sort of like DeGrom in 2021.
Yeah, I don't know if this guy – actually, no, I am going to go with another reliever here. I'm going to say Luke Weaver gets some MVP votes because the Yankees had a tough situation on their hands when Clay Holmes started to struggle. And Weaver this year, his evolution was crazy. Also, 103 strikeouts against only 26 walks in 84 innings. He showed out in his first year as a high leverage reliever. I saw him play in spring training when it looked like he was competing for a rotation spot. Turns out he was just fine in the bullpen. So I think someone's going to show him some down ballot love. So I think Weaver snags a vote.
All right, I can see it. I see the vision. All right, that'll wrap us up for our quote-unquote trivia segment. So let us know who you think will get the most obscure MVP vote this season. And we will wrap things up with everyone's favorite segment, a moment to ourselves. I'd like to go first, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, so you can count me down.
Yep, your time starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, friends. So last Friday, I spoke at my mom's funeral, and that was I don't know how long I spoke. It felt simultaneously like 30 seconds and 10 minutes. But that was a very difficult thing to write, very difficult thing to say. I'm surprised I was not in tears about 80% of the way through. I'm like, it's coming to the end. So thankfully it got to the end before I started crying, but I'm not going to use that as a jumping off point to describe creativity. And we all have some creative ability. And sometimes it manifests itself in different ways. My mom and I are very different creative people. She could make a poster and I could make a poster. I can do spreadsheets. Woo. I can do baseball stats. Right. But make sure you're able to find your creative outlet. Mine sometimes is writing, and sometimes you get hit by Zeus's lightning bolt and you create what I thought in my little blurb. If you follow me on Facebook, you probably don't, but maybe you do. You saw it on my Facebook page. But just find your way to be creative, find your way to be unique. And remember the 4 things my mom taught me: be generous, be original, be accepting, and be thankful.
By the way, I did see your post on Facebook. I really enjoyed reading it.
Unfortunately, we didn't figure out what thank you or I love you in Japanese was. We never put that into our situation.
Oh, man. Arigato.
Okay, good to know. She did have a Japanese roommate, so she would, I don't know what, like in college, and I don't know, I don't remember what she would say, but she mentioned that she had a Japanese roommate who particularly liked ramen. So when I was a kid and liked ramen, so that was a nice thing. But I'll count you down.
All right, yeah.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. So I know I spoke last week. I'm racing this weekend. It's one of these things where you still get kind of nervous, even though the stakes are significantly lower. But I've been going through this week. All of a sudden, I've been dealing with some back pain and some shoulder pain. It's not what I expected, but I still believe that I'm still looking forward to this weekend. We have 11 people signed up. I remember the first time I came home to do this meet, I was in probably the worst shape of my life. I was didn't have the healthiest habits when I was in grad school or when I was in college, but the last 2 or so years, swimming has definitely been my way to sort of escape reality for a little bit. It's been, when you're in high school or in college, athletics might seem kind of like a chore going to practice every day. But it's been great for my mental health, for my physical health. So looking forward to getting up and racing in a few days. I think just the fact that I'm in better shape than I was a few years ago, or even last year or earlier this year, it gives me confidence that I can still go out and perform. So looking forward to it. Hope we all ball out, all of us on the team. And excited.
Absolutely. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Hope you bring home some medals for the LAR crew here.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be hardware at this meet, but
That's okay.
I have virtual hardware.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we like to hear. What else do we like to hear? We like to hear notifications. So go ahead and follow us on Twitter. We're not on Blue Sky as far as I'm aware. I don't know what Blue Sky is.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe one day. I don't know. You can follow me at Mr. Splashman19. You can follow Mac at Matthias_A_K. You can follow Alex, even though he's not here. You can send prayers his way at the Sports Guy 242. And you can follow us as a whole at LAR_baseball, Twitter, Instagram. We have a YouTube page. Need to update that a little bit, but that is A-okay. And remember,
make sure you subscribe, man.
Yeah, subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment.
5-star reviews, man, on Spotify
and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Peace.